Hello and welcome to another edition of Reimagining Cyber. Thank you so much for downloading the show. My name's Ben, I'm producer of Reimagining Cyber, but of course it isn't me who you want to hear from, so without any further ado, let me introduce you to our resident expert on all things cyber, Rob Aragao. Rob, how are you doing?
Good, Ben, how are you?
Not bad at all. So what is on the agenda today?
This week, I wanted to touch upon some of the different trends and areas of focus as we're going into 2025. We had some guests on in the past, closing out 2024, giving their kind of point of view, their perspective on what this year would look like. And I just wanted to touch upon some of those items as we're now obviously here in the new year. The other thing that we will tie into this a little bit is around the news focused around DeepSeek and obviously how it's shaken the markets, taken over the news feeds, but I'll save that for the end.
Beautifully teased there, Rob. Wonderfully done. So go on then. What are the big points that people should really be considering?
So if we kind of think about, if you're a CISO, if you're a leader within cybersecurity in your organization, there are some top level items. We even covered some of these things coming out of the World Economic Forum in last week's episode. But you kind of start wrapping your arms around, what are the impacts? Again, from a global point of view, what are the impacts as it relates to the regulatory landscape to start? And we're seeing major emphasis on how, again, regulation can be that lever that helps drive ways to improve cybersecurity. And we're seeing a lot of that, and we've had conversations in the past, focused episodes on these topics of DORA, the Digital Operational Resiliency Act, again, coming out of EMEA, and also the EU AI Act, which is really driving major impact on how organizations really are going to secure their environments and how that ties back into other organizations outside of the EU that are looking to do business, right, within those markets and the ramifications back onto them.
So we're not going to go into the precise details of all those areas of DORA and the EU Act right now. We got some great episodes which covered all that kind of thing. We'll leave you links to that in the show notes. It really, really helps break that down. So, Rob, what other areas need to be considered?
The other area is around data privacy. We're coming off of, in the U.S. market specifically, 2024 introducing 3 new privacy laws, Texas, Florida, and Oregon specifically. And now in 2025, we have 8 new data privacy laws. So this whole patchwork compliance issue continues to get more and more complicated, specifically here in the US, but again, globally as well. And of the 8 new privacy laws, again, within the US, 5 of them at this point in time are already in effect, right? So again, it's ranging from Delaware to New Jersey, Nebraska, and other states, again, that are already in effect at this point in time, and 3 more to come within this calendar year. So obviously getting your arms wrapped around that, what are the reasons why we're collecting consumer information? Is there a real purpose behind the collection of that information, acknowledgement from the users that they know we're collecting that information? Is there a process in place to ensure that when requests come from the users, the consumers, on what information we have on them, we can provide that information back to them, let them know this is exactly what we've collected on you to date. And then if there's an action in some of these different regulations, calling for them to say, hey, we no longer want you to hold on to that information on us as individuals, that you're able to obviously take on and execute on getting rid of that information set as well. Now, another key factor that you're going to see, I think, really get amplified this year focuses around the topic of compliance, but automation, right? How do we get better at driving the efficiencies of assessing all these different regulatory actions that are coming at us? The new laws will be implemented. Data privacy laws is definitely part of the equation here. And how do we build them in for more efficiencies to be able to do automation across improving your compliance programs? Understanding what's actually out there within the environments and the data you're collecting as an example, and how that feeds into providing answers to the questions that are going to come from the auditors as an example. when they're going in and doing assessments. So I think you're going to see a major focus again and push into that particular area over the course of this year, especially because it's just going to be needed from an efficiency perspective, from a cost perspective. So again, that area of improvement absolutely, I believe, will be a major focal point.
And something that we've been seeing quite a lot about, particularly over the last year now, is around identity and access management, Rob.
More so as it relates to the evolution around identity access management and identity security being a part of that. So if you look at it from more of, again, a programmatic-based approach, we're definitely seeing organizations doing a complete review, assessment of what they actually have in place for their program, the people, the processes, and the tooling to support those. And are they delivering on those outcomes? And then importantly, where are the gaps within the program? So there's a lot of focus, obviously, on how to get better. There are solutions that have been put in place, have been around for quite some time, that are being reassessed, revamped in some cases, replaced in other cases. And the other element here, or the couple elements, I should say here, tie into the non-human identity conversation, which again, we've covered many times in the past, and just the sheer explosion of how you have to take into account all these different types of non-human identities. So again, think about IoT devices, APIs as examples of that. And the second element, as I was alluding to, is around the interconnection to data. So I just came off of talking around data privacy regulations. Identity is centric to data privacy regulations. And of course, data is as well. But the combination and convergence of the two is a critical factor in successful programs that are transitioning to the point of understanding the relationship and convergence of data and identity, and really where that's going next. And we had, again, a really focused conversation on that just a few months back, which this again continues to heat up for the cyber world as a whole.
And the episode to look out for there is number 124, called Digital DNA, Convergence of Identity and Data. Rob, next up, critical infrastructure.
Going back to that, yes, for sure, because it is critical that we assess and understand the resiliency capabilities we have in place to ensure the continuity of our business operations or organizational missions, depending on what sector you're in, during a cyber incident, right? And so it goes back into, looking at and more focus on critical infrastructure, across multiple verticals, healthcare, energy sector, financial sector, and of the such, which connects back into supply chain. And, supply chain, it's interesting. We actually, I was just thinking back, we haven't had a lot of conversation over the past year on supply chain security specifically. It seems like when an event happens, right, we drive towards that. I think it was earlier last year with the Change Health security incident, and the impact it kind of, had ramifications throughout the healthcare sector, drove us to having that as a major topic of conversation within one of the episodes. But it's again, just this whole interconnection point of understanding third-party risk with the vendors that you're working with, and assessing and understanding, again, what the implications are if something happens to those third-party relationship and those networks, the data that they may be collecting and storing themselves, all those interdependencies. That's another one that's definitely under the microscope for sure.
And sticking with microscopes, I don't think there are enough microscopes in the world to suitably analyse what you're going to talk about now. You'll probably find a crystal ball would be of more use. I am, of course, talking about AI.
The whole point about us seeing just the sheer explosion of AI-driven, enabled cyber attacks and the efficiencies there, while we're racing on the other side of the coin to help drive better protection, better detection capabilities by leveraging AI.
Which rather neatly brings us round to what you mentioned right at the start of the podcast, Rob, DeepSeek.
And again, everyone I'm sure at this point has the background on just how this kind of rocked the market over the past few days, how it took over your news feeds, and just what we're seeing out there is their claims around the efficiencies at low costs that they're driving at and the outcomes that they're actually able to bring forward. All very interesting, and obviously keeping a close eye on that. But by the way, All of that news has also led towards the first key cybersecurity targeted attack on DeepSeek. And so DeepSeek was taken offline for a bit. They attribute it towards a large-scale malicious attack. Obviously, again, they're out in the news. They become targets, and here we go. But just be aware, right? I'm connecting that back towards, yes, there's going to be cybersecurity incidents towards any sort of organization. This is just another example of it. But what I'm talking about as it relates to DeepSeek is also attributed back to the data privacy conversation. And think about what's happening here in the US, specifically coming out of Washington with the TikTok ban that's being assessed, reviewed, and timing obviously has been extended a little bit. But why? Because of the concerns around national security associated to what our population is doing, is sharing on TikTok. Isn't DeepSeek yet another avenue of a similar problem?
Why so?
Think about this from the perspective of, as a user signs in, and if you actually would go and take a look at their privacy policy, what you would note is the user's personal information that's being collected, stored includes their device and network connection, their usage patterns, and their payment details as well. And by the way, it's all hosted in quote unquote secure servers located within the People's Republic of China. Need I say more? So listen, I'll leave you with that. I think, again, some key areas of focus. We've been having these conversations over the past few weeks. We've had some great guests come on and give kind of their perspectives on what's to come for this year. Just really shining the light, emphasizing those areas, bringing this topic as well this week. But again, we're looking forward to the next conversation this time next week. And by the way, I'm excited to have a co-host join us for next week. And it's someone that's actually been on a recent episode. So I'll leave you with that little teaser and looking forward to our conversations again with you next week.
And if you want to be one of the first to find out exactly who Reimagining Cyber's new co-host is, well, you know what to do. You just need to follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends as well. Rob, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Always a pleasure.
And thanks to you for listening, and goodbye.